The prime ministers of Turkey and Israel have announced a deal to restore diplomatic relations. It's been 6 years since Israel launched a deadly raid on a Turkish aid ship in international waters. The deal will end a rift that began in 2010 after the Israeli Navy killed 9 Turkish nationals and 1 American as they tried to deliver aid to the blockaded Gaza Strip. Let's have a closer look at the conditions of the deal. Well, Israel has apologized for the raid in 2013, but has now agreed to pay $20 million to the victims' families and those injured. Ankara and Tel Aviv have also agreed that Turkey will be able to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza and carry out reconstruction projects in the blockaded Palestinian territory. Well, we have correspondents covering the story in both Turkey and Israel. We'll have reaction from Gregg Carlstrom in Tel Aviv in just a few minutes. But first, let's go to Hasan Abdullah, who is live for us in Ankara. Hasan, does Turkey feel that its demands have been met by this deal?
Yes, Turkey does feel that its demands have been met. Officials here are describing this as a diplomatic success. Israel has apologized. Israel has agreed to compensate the victims, the families of the victims. And also, there has been some confusion on the third point about the naval blockade, especially after the statement from Israeli Prime Minister. But what officials here are saying to clarify that is that Turkey is not going to face any restrictions, any sort of naval embargo or naval blockade when its ships are traveling to the Palestinian territories with aid goods. So according to Turkish officials, it's a win-win situation. Earlier, Turkish Prime Minister Binali Yildirim, when announcing this, said that it's going to benefit the Turks as well as the Palestinians.
This Blue Marmara attack, our citizens had lost our lives and we asked for compensations. And both of these topics have been included in this memorandum of understanding, this consensus. The relatives of our citizens who have lost their lives in this Blue Marmara attack are going to be compensated, and this figure is around $120 million.
Hasan, what do you make of the timing of this deal? But as you say, there was a rift for 6 years. Why do they want to make this deal now?
Well, you have to understand that both countries have a lot to gain from this rapprochement. They are one of the key trading partners. Both countries have a lot to gain politically as well as economically. Now, this was, according to Turkish officials, a very difficult diplomatic exercise, and that's why it took some time. However, when you look at the Israeli perspective, Israel feels that it has a lot to gain politically as well as economically. Israel is interested in tapping into the resources in the Mediterranean. When you look at the Turkish side, Turkey is trying to cut down its reliance on Russian gas imports. And of course, Israel is a viable option. Turkey also does look at Israel as one of the countries from which it imports high-tech defense equipment. So both countries have a lot to gain, both in terms of politics and economics. And when we look at the trading volume, it is quite significant between the two countries.
OK, Hasan, good to speak to you. Let's get the reaction from Israel and speak to Gregg Carlstrom in Tel Aviv. Gregg, so, you know, as Hasan was saying there, Israel stands to gain both politically and economically. Tell us what the reaction has been in Israel.
Well, you would think it would be quite positive. On the face of it, this deal restores Israel's relations with a major regional power, with one of its closest allies in the Muslim world, and it does so without having to completely lift the blockade of Gaza. And yet the reaction here has been actually very critical from many quarters. The front page of one of the country's largest newspapers today, the headline was "Reconciliation or Surrender." And the issue really is the status of several Israelis who are being held in Gaza. There are 2 Israeli civilians who are thought to be alive, who are thought to be held by Hamas. And then there are the bodies of 2 Israeli soldiers who were killed during the 2014 war. This deal does not bring any of them back. It says only that Turkey will try to work and negotiate with Hamas for their return. Now, some of this, of course, is Prime Minister Netanyahu's opponents trying to paint him as weak on security. But there's been some criticism from the right as well, from his allies who have painted this, who have described this as being almost a capitulation to Hamas.
So why has he made this deal?
Well, the economy, as Hasan mentioned, is a big part of it. If you look at the day-to-day economic trade back and forth, it hasn't really been affected by the political crisis. You can walk around downtown Tel Aviv and there are dozens of construction sites where Turkish contractors are building. But there are two big issues. One of them, he mentioned defense equipment. Israel is one of the largest military exporters in the world, and it sees Turkey as a major potential market. And then there's this gas deal, the energy resources that he mentioned. Israel has spent the past few years developing a major offshore natural gas field. It's expected to bring in billions of dollars over the coming decades, but for that to happen, it needs a way to sell that gas. Now, some is going to Jordan. It hoped to sell some to Egypt, but Egypt has since found its own energy. And so Europe remains really the biggest export market for Israel. And of course, the easiest way to get that gas to Europe is through Turkey. The Turkish prime minister has said it's too early to talk about any kind of a gas deal, but you can be sure that Prime Minister Netanyahu will be pushing for those negotiations in the coming weeks and months.
Okay, Greg, good to speak to you. Gregg Carlstrom there, a reporter in Tel Aviv.